There are legends that, because of their worldwide impact, have inspired the nightmares of millions around the world. And the one about the Headless Horseman, the one from Sleepy Hollow, is no exception. But did you know it's inspired by a real event? Stay with me, and I'll tell you the true story of the undead one who, for centuries, he has been seen riding at night, surprising his victims on the desolate country roads. And don't even think about missing the ending. I promise not to disappoint you because I am el documentalista. And this is the real case behind the legend of the Headless Horseman. To begin with, in just 1 minute, you should know that during the United States War of Independence, which began in 1775, King George III of Great Britain hired about 30,000 Hessian soldiers and others from German principalities to fight against the colonial rebels. Why? Because those mercenaries, who came from the Landgraviate of Hesse-Kassel and were famous for being disciplined, well-armed, and well-trained soldiers, inspired fear among their enemies, especially the terrifying elite Hessian troops called Zagor hunters, rough and extremely violent men, and expert horsemen who were recruited from the coldest and most remote areas of the forests of Germany. But the reputation of the Hessians as invincible was surpassed by the intelligence of Washington. On Christmas night of 1776 itself, Washington crossed the Delaware River with 2,400 men in deadly cold, and then surprised the Hessian troops serving the British. This was no coincidence. The German soldiers hired by King George III had a double agent in their ranks. What did he tell the Hessian colonel? You can celebrate in peace, don't worry. Make sure there's no shortage of alcohol this Christmas. I approached the enemy camp, and Washington's troops are battered. They're not going to attack us. But as I told you, this spy was actually working for the Patriots. And while he was convincing Colonel Hessian that everything was in order, the 2,400 led by Washington were already getting ready to attack. And the next morning, they caught them by surprise, drunk and overconfident. The victory of the Patriots was overwhelming in what became known as the Battle of Trenton. However, the official story conceals one fact, very particular. Because the Hessian Jagger did not agree at all with surrendering, and they had to go after him. Letting him escape was impossible, because the bastard had a reputation for being cruel, a sorcerer, and immortal. And this, although hidden, is well documented. Let me tell you, the spy had told Washington before the battle, "I will do my job. The Hessians trust me. So when you arrive, you'll be able to attack them without resistance. But for God's sake, do yourself and your troops a favor. When you take the city, find and kill a Jagger who looks like he came from hell. He almost never gets off his horse and stays on the outskirts. You'll know who I'm talking about as soon as you see him. For Christ's sake, I swear you'll know who I mean. He's not dressed like the others. The bastard wears old armor and refuses to fire the rifled musket. He only carries a long sword. His cruelty is limitless, and all other Gezians fear and revere him. There are legends about him. They say he has knowledge, that he's a sorcerer, that the Germans recruited him hundreds of years ago, and that he has been in all the important battles throughout Europe. He doesn't take any pay. He only asks to take the heads, the human heads that the bastard cuts off in a single blow as he passes by. I saw them. I'm not lying to you. He has hundreds of them, hundreds, including women and children. They say his name is Johann von Haste or Johann, but everyone calls him Schaffrichstah, the sharp judge. Don't let him escape, but there's more. When you catch him, there's only one way to kill him, right? The Hessians say that Schaffrichstah and his horse must be buried alive under sacred ground. That's the only way. But Washington interrupted, saying the homeland has no time for superstitions. After defeating 1,400 Hessians in Trenton, the Patriots occupied the city for a week. But in a stinking cart, just as the spy said, Washington's men found hundreds of heads, some sewn with feathers, herbs, and pieces of paper with spells written in German. It didn't take long for them to spot the famous Giga Schaffrichstah on the outskirts. The bastard kept riding his horse, waiting for nightfall to attack them. They sent a party of 20 men after him, all volunteers, enraged after seeing those skulls, among which there were women and children. It was a settler named Conrad Patterson who wrote in his diary what happened that night. The Hessian prisoners pointed him out. The owner of those heads is Giga Schaffrichstah, the infernal rider we see in the distance through the mist of that dreadful winter. He seems to come from another time, riding a black horse with silver armor. I bet he's laughing at us. The plan is simple. 20 of us go after him. We shoot as soon as he's within range. Something strange seemed to be happening. Either we all missed, or that thing. And his horse? They're ghosts, because we couldn't bring them down. He charged at us at a gallop with a sword in his hand. Thomas and Baron put their bayonets forward. That's when I realized he was right. The bastard laughed as he decapitated them while passing by, then stopped to spear the heads with the tip of his sword and put them in a sack. There we ran with our bayonets like spears and stabbed them everywhere. The horse fell beside him. I swear before God that I myself pierced the Hessian's skull, but he kept trying to get up. We dragged him through the streets like a trophy, all the way to the cart, get yonder. Did you go already? He wouldn't die. He screamed, roared like a madman, but he wouldn't die. We wanted to give him an exemplary punishment for what he had done, so we made him kneel in front of one of our cannons. We lit it and... The cannonball decapitated him. Everyone celebrated except me. I immediately knew something was wrong, and just in case, I took his head. I covered it with salt, mud, and cloth, and kept it to take it to Father Hawkins. As soon as I get home, I'll give it to him. The priest will know what to do. By that time, all of America was connected by just a few royal roads, difficult and dangerous. The ones built by the British in the United States and by the Portuguese and Spanish in the South. The rest were just horse trails, extremely risky to travel due to Indian raids, attacks by thieves and wild animals. It is known that Father Hawkins received the head of the Schaffrichstah and set out to escape with it. Escaping along those narrow paths 5 years later, and he never mentioned it again. Why did he run away? Because at night, something was getting closer and closer, attacking and killing something. It was looking for her. That's right. Dozens of witnesses say that a headless horseman, riding a black horse, had intercepted their carriages. One of the few written testimonies that still remain says, "We had heard the legend of the Headless Horseman, and everything happened exactly the same way. There was some fog on the side of the road, and as soon as we passed by, it started chasing us. My husband fired his big pistol, but the horseman decapitated him. My son Andres, who was only 14 years old, tried to go help his father, but the carriage went off the road, overturned, and crushed him. That specter from hell came back to pick up my husband's head and disappeared into the darkness while the girls and I screamed in terror. According to my research, Schaffrichstah was originally a noble and solitary expert in the arts of war who liked to act as a bounty hunter. In the depths of the Rangni forest, Viles, his real name, Johann von Haste, appears in the books The Ancient Courts. There you can read what a clerk wrote down. The odd one, von Haste. He volunteered again, as always, to personally go after a fugitive. In this case, it's about the murderers of the boy Himmler, who fled in the direction everyone flees, toward the forest. The judge trusts him, even though he never brings them back alive to face trial. But there in the forest, without a doubt, he must have encountered a wandering demon. Those who like to walk among the trees at night and tempt those who venture in alone. Surely they ended up forging a pact, the usual thing to gain power, knowledge, and prolong their life. Why am I so sure? Because among the books with stories from the German region before the year 1700, there is one that tells of an encounter, although with a different protagonist, in which the demon's demands fit perfectly with the behavior of the Headless Horseman. Listen carefully to what the book says. I, Wilfred, confess that I have sinned against our Lord. I have no children or wife. The fever has taken them away. It had stolen everything from me. Everything in the house reminded me of them. So, tormented by the pain, I started walking straight into the forest. I wasn't planning to stop, but the cold of the night forced me to sharpen my eyes to make out the faint lights of the campfires that, in the distance, they keep burning. The wretches like me who hide from pain among the trees. Or maybe they were criminals about to freeze. It doesn't matter anymore. Water and food were beside the fire. Despite being tired, it only took me a moment to realize that something was wrong. The only one around was a thin, ragged old man, unable to move the heavy logs he used for the campfire. Also an ambush. But I was wrong, the decrepit old man told me. I welcome you. You're still young. Wouldn't you like to have the power to stand in front of the graves of your children and wife and say, "Rise"? I command them and they come back to life. God doesn't want you to have that knowledge, but we, the demons, well, we are more generous. I confess that I was crying with joy. I didn't care about betraying the Almighty. I just wanted them to come back from the dead. But the bastard wanted something in return. Heads, human heads. The trunk of a tree had 3 swords, and it tempted me to choose one. I took the thinnest one, I thought to myself. The forests are full of thieves. Will I only kill the bad ones? But after surprising the first one with a sword and taking the head to the demon, I realized that I didn't need just one. The bastard was laughing out loud, but he kept his word. We read those spells together. I decorated the head with flowers and spat on it, drawing the symbols he taught me. I felt the power immediately. I became stronger, and the mist obeyed me. I killed 5 in total that first year, but the power to bring my family back never came. There was always something to learn, always one more head to cut off. I had decapitated more than 20 people by the end of the Great Moon's autumn. By then, some animals obeyed me, fire didn't burn me, weapons couldn't hurt me, and the demon was no longer in the campfire. It wasn't needed anymore. Because I heard his voice at night inside, in my head. The priests set a trap for me. They dragged me out of the forest with horses, and for 3 days they performed rituals with me. Or with what I have inside. I just wanted to bring my family back to life, and I was deceived. The priests forced me to confess his name. I was possessed by Aures, an ancient and lonely demon who likes to turn men into monsters. I was one of them. The children from the neighboring villages called me the Desolator, but I'm not the only one in this region, nor the most terrible. So, from testimonies like this, we know that the Headless Horseman definitely made a pact with a demon, maybe with Aures himself, seeking the power to become immortal. And he succeeded. It's just that a part of his body was taken from him and he can't die because he's still looking for it. There were dozens of recorded attacks until the writer Washington Irving published a short story inspired by his case in 1820, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. From that moment on, it became almost impossible to distinguish which murders were actually committed by the Headless Horseman and which were by ordinary killers who used the character as an alibi. Why? Yes, the rate of beheadings on rural roads has grown exponentially. Testimonies from those who have seen it have increased dramatically. In a strip that goes from the fields of the United States to the plains of Patagonia, Argentina. To this day, there are those who claim to have always seen him on his black camel. And that may be true. He feels the call of his head, that relic wrapped in cloth, mud, and salt, which the church never keeps in the same place for more than a few months. I am El Dogmentalista. And this was the real case behind the legend of the Headless Horseman.